Good morning, everybody. Thank you for checking out this video tutorial. Today we'll be talking about equations and inequalities, and we'll be mainly solving equations using addition and subtraction today. Okay. Hopefully this is a little bit of review for you, but if not, um, I'll definitely do my best to teach it to you for the first time. And for those of you that have seen a little bit of it, hopefully you get some good reminders. Our learning target for the day is I can describe how to solve one-step equations using addition and subtraction. Our vocabulary says two equations are equivalent equations when they have the same solutions or the same answers. The addition and subtraction properties of equality can be used to produce equivalent equations. And here are those two properties, the addition property of equation and the subtraction property of equation. And the words in algebra might look a little confusing, so I'll give you some numbers examples as well. It says adding the same number to each side of an equation produces an equivalent equation. So if A is equal to B, then A plus C is equal to B plus C. All that's saying is if we had something equal something. So let's say we had 2 equals 2, right? This equals this. That's saying if you add the same number to each side of the equation, it stays true. So remember in equations, we've got a left-hand side of an equation and a right-hand side, left of the equal sign and right of the equal sign. That's saying if you add the same number to both sides, so if I added 3 to both sides, right, I'm adding the same number to both sides, it stays true. 2 plus 3 is 5. Does 5 equal 5? Absolutely it does. Okay, that's all that's saying is when you add the same number to each side, your equation is still equal or equivalent. And the same goes for subtraction. If I had 5 equals 5, and I subtracted the same number on both sides, so I subtracted 3 on both sides, it would be 2 equals 2. It stays the same, that stays equal. And remember that equations are like scales. Okay? Sometimes students like to think of it as a teeter-totter. Remember when you were a kid and you had this, I think they call this point like a fulcrum, but then here's like the teeter-totter, right? I'm the bigger brother, so my side would always go down further. Here's my little brother would always be up in the air, right? But an equation is like a scale. Whatever you do to balance the scale, you have to do to both sides. So a balanced scale would be like this, right? If I had, let's say I had 2 cookies over here and another 2 cookies over here. If I wanted to balance the scale, I'd have to eat a cookie from both sides. So I'd have 1 on each side. Okay. So remember, whatever you do to one side of an equation, you need to do to the other side to balance your scale, to keep it equivalent on both sides. And hopefully that makes a little bit of sense seeing it with the numbers here. Okay. So let's look at the first example here and see how that goes for us. It says solve x minus 5 equals negative 1. X minus 5 equals negative 1. So what this is saying is what number, when we subtract 5, gives us negative 1. Okay. The way that I like to teach it is to ask yourself, what is being done to my variable and how can I undo it? I'll write that down. What is being done to my variable and how can I undo it? So in this case here, I'm going to split my equation right at the equal sign. So I have a left-hand side and a right-hand side. Remember, my letter is my variable. What is being done to my variable? Well, it's being subtracted by 5. How do I undo subtracting 5? I add 5. And remember, since an equation is like a scale, whatever I do to the left-hand side, to balance that scale, I need to also do to the right-hand side. Okay? Negative 5 plus 5, or subtracting 5 and adding 5 are opposites. They undo each other, so they cancel out to 0. I'm left with x on the left-hand side of my equation equals negative 1 plus 5 would give me 4. And if I wanted to check that, I could substitute this value into my original equation. So instead of writing x, I'm going to write 4. 4 minus 5 equals negative 1. Is 4 minus 5 negative 1? Yes, it is. Yep, so we've checked our answer and we're correct. Okay, so that's kind of the process that I like to take when solving these one-step equations. Let's look at another one. This time we've got some fractions here. So I've got z plus 3 halves equals 1 half. Start by splitting my equation at the equal sign. So I have a left-hand side and a right-hand side. And then I'm going to ask myself this question. What is being done to my variable? Well, z is being added by 3 halves. So how can I undo that? The opposite of adding 3 halves would be subtracting 3 halves. And whatever I do on one side of my equation, to balance it, I need to do on the other side. So subtract 3 halves. Adding 3 halves, subtracting 3 halves are opposites. They will cancel out. And I'll be left with z equals, 1 half minus 3 halves. Well, I have a common denominator of 2, so I'll keep it. And then 1 minus 3 is negative 2. And negative 2 divided by 2, they have different signs, so it gives me a negative answer. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. So z is equal to negative 1. So in this case, since it was an addition problem, I used subtraction to solve it. And since this was a subtraction problem, I used addition to solve it. All right. Next, I'll have you try 1, 2, and 3 here on your own. Please pause the video now to try it out. Alrighty. Hopefully you got a chance to do so. You should have arrived at these answers. For number 1, let's do it together. We'd have to add 5 on both sides to undo that subtracting by 5. So P equals, you should get 3. Number 2, you'd have to subtract 13.2 on both sides. So W equals negative 2.8. And then number 3, you'd add 5/6 on both sides. And so you'd get x equals negative 1/6 plus 5/6 would be 4/6, which simplifies to 2/3. Okay, let me know if you had any questions on those two. In the next example, we are going to practice writing an equation. So I'm going to give you a heads up here. Sometimes these can be a little bit tricky for students. I'm going to try to walk you through how you take a word problem and you write it as an equation. Okay? So it says, the skydiving company has a profit of $750 this week. This profit is $900 more than the profit last week. Which equation can be used to find P, so the profit? Okay. What I like to do is I like to kind of rewrite this into a simpler word problem. So I can think of it a little bit easier and match some numbers to some words. So the skydiving company has a profit of $750 this week. And this is 900 more than last week. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite that. The profit, and I'm going to think of it this: the profit this week is 900 more than last week. And I just essentially what I did is I just reworded that so it's not so confusing. Okay, the profit this week is 900 more than last week. Okay, so let's do a little color coding here. What is the profit this week? Well, it tells me this week is 750. Okay. Is in math, this is a big keyword, means equals 900 more than last week. So how would you say that? Do we know what we made last week? Not exactly. So we could call that a variable like P for profit, and 900 more than. So more than means addition, and we have 900 plus P. Remember, when you're adding, you can change the order of that. So do you see any equations that would match that? 750 equals 900 plus P or P plus 900. And definitely letter B looks like the correct choice there. Okay, so sometimes rewording it really helps me. And then using some keywords like more than means to add, is equals, and then just putting in a few other pieces to the puzzle. Okay, so let's try it one more time with number 4. It says, actually, why don't you try it here? Pause and try to rewrite this as this word sentence as an equation. Okay, it says a bakery has a profit of $120.50 today. This profit is $145.25 less than the profit yesterday. Okay, write an equation that can be used to find P, which is profit. Okay, so when I'm thinking about this, I know what I should end up with. I should end up with, for today's total, of $120.50. Okay, so that's what I should equal in the end. That profit is, so remember, equals $145.25 less than, should mean to subtract, the profit yesterday. Okay, so in other words, if we took yesterday's profit, which was P, and we, remember, less than means to subtract this amount, 145.25, that should give us our profit of today, which is $120.50. Now, some people like to, they said, well, don't we start with $120.50? Yeah, you could rewrite this. Remember, you could just switch the sides of these two and it'd be the same. So that's the same thing as $120.50 is equal to P minus 145.25. Those are the same thing. It's just we switch the order of those. And either is correct. Okay. All right. Let's try one more example here, and then a little bit more practice, and we'll be finished. So example 3 says, you and your friend play a video game. The line graph shows both of your scores after each level. Okay, so your scores up on the vertical axis here, and the levels on the horizontal axis, so level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. What is your score after level 4? Okay, well, your score is in the green here. So you go down first, but then looks like you increase at the end. And your friend does the opposite. So they start off really good, but then they decrease. Okay. We know between your scores there are 33 points. And we also know that your friend ends at -8 points. You can see that here. It's really close to -10, but it tells us with this coordinate point it's at -8. Okay, so let's, I'm guessing some of you are seeing, well, you can just take -8 and you can add 33 and you'll get to your score here, which is correct. But you can also think of this as an equation. So I'm going to rewrite it again into an equation, into a simpler word problem. And then from there, I'll write an equation. So in words, I would say your friend's score is 33 points less than your score. And I think you'd agree with me. Your friend's score is 33 points less than your score. Okay, so if I were to write an equation, your friend's score, well, I know my friend's score ends up at -8. Means equals, and then 33 points less than your score. Okay, so if you were to take your score, we don't know that. Let's call it S. And we were to subtract 33. If we took your score and subtracted 33, we'd arrive at your friend's score. Okay, so we could use this equation and solve for S to find your score. Okay, -8 equals S minus 33. Sometimes some students get confused on this because they say, well, now our variable's on the right-hand side. Does that matter? The answer is not really. I'd still ask myself that same question. What is being done to my variable? Well, I see S is being subtracted by 33. So to undo that, I would add by 33. And whatever I do to one side of my scale, I need to do to the other. So subtracting 33 and adding 33 cancel. I'll be left with S. And then I need to take -8 and add 33. Same thing as 33 minus 8, which is 25. So I get 25 equals S. Remember, that's the same as S equals 25. Those two things are the same. And since it's a word problem, I'll think of a label, and S stood for points. And let's see, does that look accurate for our score? 10, 20, 30, and it's about halfway between 20 and 30. So that makes sense. All right. Lastly here, why don't you pause the video now to try out a few more problems to see how you're coming along, and do a little self-assess here to make sure you're understanding. Alrighty. For number 5, you should arrive at 8. For number 6, you should arrive at -14.7. For number 7, you should get 1 2/3. Number 8, yes, those two equations are true, and that's because when you solve for them, m would equal -8 in both situations. And then number 9, which one does not belong? That would be x plus 1 equals -5, because that answer is -6. When you solve this, subtract 1 on both sides, you get -6. All the other ones, all the others are equivalent to -4. And this one, x would equal -6. Okay? So if you had any questions on the more practice section, please let me know. Alrighty, this wraps up 4.1 for us, and solving equations using addition or subtraction. Thanks for checking this video out. I'll see you next time.